He had been visiting her grave for 2 years. Every week. Same day. Same roses. Until a barefoot girl walked out of the rain and said 5 words that shattered his entire world. "Your wife isn't dead, sir." He thought she was lying. Then she opened her hand. And what was sitting in her palm should have been buried 6 feet underground. Someone had faked a death. Someone had stolen years from him. And the person responsible had been standing right beside him the whole time. But here's what nobody knew yet. The body in that grave? It wasn't hers. Hello friends, welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video, share, and subscribe. Also tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Is it United States, London, maybe Canada, Jamaica, South Africa, or anywhere? We want to know. And tell us what you learned at the end of this video. The rain had been falling since morning. Not the soft, gentle kind of rain that makes you want to sit by a window with a warm cup of tea. No. This was the heavy, angry kind of rain. The kind that soaks through your coat before you even reach your front door. The kind that makes the whole world feel like it is mourning something. And for Jude Nelson, the whole world had been mourning for 2 years. He was kneeling in the mud at the private cemetery. His trousers, imported, tailored, worth more than most people's monthly salary, were completely soaked through. His black coat clung to his shoulders like a second skin. His driver had offered to hold an umbrella over him, but Jude had waved him away without a word. He didn't want the umbrella. He wanted the rain. Because on days like this, when the sky cried with him, it felt like he wasn't completely alone. In front of him, rising from the wet earth like a monument to the worst moment of his life, stood a marble tombstone. White. Smooth. Cold. Carved with letters that had been paid for with money that meant nothing to him anymore. Rebecca Rowland Nelson. Beloved wife. Beloved light. Gone too soon. He had chosen those words himself. Standing in this same spot, 2 years ago, surrounded by hundreds of people in black, colleagues, politicians, business partners, cameras, flowers, speeches, while inside his chest, something that used to beat like a drum had gone completely, terrifyingly quiet. He was the richest man in the room that day. And the most broken. Now, most of those people were gone. The cameras. The speeches. The flowers. The condolences that stopped coming after the first 3 months, because the world moves on even when you cannot. But Jude still came here. Every single week. With white roses. Because Rebecca had loved white roses. She used to say red roses were too dramatic. Red is for people who want to be noticed, she would laugh. White is for people who are sure enough of themselves that they don't need the noise. He placed the fresh flowers gently against the stone. And then he just stayed there. Kneeling. Listening to the rain. Talking to her in his head, the way he always did. Telling her about the week. About the board meeting that nearly fell apart. About the new project she would have had opinions about. Strong opinions, probably delivered while pointing a fork at him across the dinner table. He almost smiled at that. Almost. The smile never fully arrived anymore. It would get to the edge of his lips, and then something would pull it back. Like a dog on a leash. Like his face had quietly decided that full smiles now belonged to a different life. A past life. A life that ended on the night a yacht called the Roland exploded in the middle of the dark ocean and took the only person who had ever made Jude Nelson feel like a human being. He pressed his palm flat against the marble. The stone was freezing. "I still miss you," he said quietly. Not for the cameras. Not for the driver waiting by the car 20 meters away. Just for her. Just for the stone. Just for the rain. Every single day. He closed his eyes. And that was the moment he heard the voice. Soft. Young. Careful. Almost swallowed by the sound of the falling rain. "Sir." He didn't move right away. He thought maybe he had imagined it. He had done that before, heard her voice in crowds, in hallways, in the spaces between sleeping and waking. But then it came again. "Sir, please. I need to tell you something." Jude opened his eyes slowly. He turned his head. And standing behind him, maybe 3 meters away, was a girl. She was young, 17, maybe 18, though life had written things on her face that made her look older in the eyes. She was barefoot. On a rainy day, in a cemetery, completely barefoot, her feet dark with mud. Her clothes were clean but worn thin at the edges, the kind of clothes that had been washed so many times they had forgotten their original color. Her hair was tied back loosely, and she was shivering slightly, though she was trying very hard not to show it. She was nobody. That was what Jude's brain said in that first second. Nobody important. Nobody connected to him. Probably someone who had seen his car outside the cemetery gates and wanted money. It happened. Even here. He turned back to the tombstone. "Whatever you need," he said quietly, "speak to my driver. He will help you." Silence. He expected to hear her footsteps walking away. He heard nothing. "Sir," the girl said again, and this time there was something different in her voice. Something that made Jude's jaw tighten without him knowing why. "I'm not here for money. I came a long way to find you. Please. Please listen to what I'm about to say." Jude exhaled slowly. He didn't turn around again. He spoke to the stone instead. "You have 30 seconds. The rain fell between them. And then the girl spoke. And in 5 words, 5 simple, impossible, devastating words, she reached into Jude Nelson's chest, grabbed the part of him that had gone quiet 2 years ago, and twisted it until his entire body turned cold. "Your wife isn't dead, sir." The world stopped. Jude didn't move. He didn't breathe. He felt it, that sentence, the way you feel a car accident. That split second before impact where your body understands something terrible is happening but your brain is still trying to catch up. He thought he had misheard. He turned around slowly. The girl was still there. Still shivering. Still looking at him with those eyes that were too old for her face. "What did you just say?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "She didn't flinch. Your wife. She didn't die. She faked her death." The girl swallowed once. "And I know exactly where she is." For 3 full seconds, Jude Nelson, the man who had closed billion-dollar deals without blinking, the man who had faced boardrooms full of people trying to destroy him without breaking a sweat, simply stared at this barefoot girl in complete and total silence. And then something shifted in his face. Not grief. Not hope. Something colder than both. "Who sent you?" he said. "Nobody." "Who are you working for?" "Nobody, sir. I promise. I work at a small market. I sell bread. I came here because—" "You came here," Jude said, standing up slowly from the mud, his full height suddenly filling the space between them, "to a private cemetery, on a day I visit every week, to tell me my dead wife is alive." He said the last 3 words very carefully. Like they were made of glass. Like he was afraid of what would happen if he said them too fast. "Yes," the girl said. "And you expect me to believe you?" "No," she said honestly. "I expected you to think I was crazy. But I brought something." Her hand moved to her pocket. Jude watched it. Slowly, carefully, with fingers that were trembling from either cold or fear, possibly both, she reached inside and pulled something out. She held it up. And Jude Nelson's blood stopped moving in his veins. It was a bracelet. Small. Silver. Delicate. A thin chain with a single oval pendant, engraved with a small flower on one side and 2 initials on the other. J and R. Jude and Rebecca. He had given her that bracelet on the night he proposed. On a rooftop. Under stars. With his hands shaking because for the first time in his adult life, Jude Nelson had been terrified of something that had nothing to do with money. He knew every detail of that bracelet. The small scratch on the left edge of the pendant from the night she knocked her wrist against a car door and laughed about it. The way the clasp had been repaired once because the original had been too loose. He knew it the way he knew his own name. He also knew, with absolute certainty, that this bracelet had been buried. With her. In that coffin. In that ground. Right here, in this cemetery, under this marble stone, beneath his feet. His eyes moved from the bracelet to the girl's face. "Where did you get that?" His voice had dropped to something barely above a whisper. "She gave it to me," the girl said simply. "About 3 weeks ago. She told me to find you. She told me to show you this if you didn't believe me," she said. The girl paused, swallowed again. "She said you would know it was real. She said you would remember the scratch." The scratch. The scratch she had never told anyone about. The scratch that was never in any photograph, never mentioned in any article, never documented anywhere in the world except in the private memory of 2 people who had stood on a rooftop under stars with shaking hands and whispered promises to each other. Jude's hand moved before he even decided to reach out. His fingers closed around the bracelet. Cold metal. Real weight. Real scratch, right where it had always been. He stood there holding it. And something happened inside his chest that he had no word for. It wasn't joy. It wasn't relief. It was more like standing in a room you thought was empty and suddenly realizing the walls have been breathing this entire time. Because if this bracelet was real, if this girl was telling the truth, If Rebecca was alive, somewhere, hiding, breathing, with her face and her voice and her laugh that he still heard in his sleep, then what, exactly, was buried in the ground beneath his feet? Whose body had he knelt beside for 2 years? Whose grave had he placed white roses on, week after week, talking to a stone in the rain? He looked down at the tombstone. And for the first